Hi, how are you? It's Zoe here, and welcome to the Living with a Sleeve troubleshooting series. Thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. Every day in my clinic, I hear people with a sleeve mentioning the same sorts of struggles. So they might say it slightly differently, but there seemed to be a really common theme in terms of what people were struggling to get used to after their surgery. I'll be talking in this series about the top 5 of those struggles and how to troubleshoot them so that you can live your best sleeved life and get the most out of your new tool. It's going to be a great ride. I hope it will be action-packed with practical tips, and I hope you find it really helpful. And so once again, just thank you for joining. I really, really appreciate it, and I'm really glad you're here. Now, before we go any further, I want to congratulate you. Taking this step and making the decision to go through with a surgery like a sleeve gastrectomy is huge. It is a big decision to take control of your life and your health, and really a very big decision to make these huge lifestyle changes. So I know it can be difficult at times, and it is definitely not an easy ride, but hopefully it's a really rewarding experience for you, and I can be here with you on your journey to help you along the way.
Now, here in lesson 1, we're going to do a deep dive into the reasons why you might be feeling uncomfortable or vomiting or burping after your meals. We're going to talk about why this might happen and what you can do about it. Next lesson, we're going to look at the feeling of struggling to not eat and drink at the same time. Then we're going to cover how to deal with eating out at a restaurant, and then dealing with the feeling of not feeling satisfied or enjoying your food anymore. And finally, how to deal with worrying about whether or not you're getting the right balance in terms of nutrition. So let's dive right in. It's really common to feel uncomfortable after eating, or to have lots of burping, or to have these events that we call foamies, which is when you're eating a meal after you've sort of finished, or you feel like a food's gotten stuck. You have all of this white foam and phlegm that you need to bring up. This happens really early on and usually settles down within the first couple of months, but some people are really still getting these symptoms, years after their surgery. And 9 times out of 10, the cause is either that your mouthfuls are too big, they're too fast, or you have 1 or 2 too many. Now, there's a reason why this is happening. When your mouthfuls are too big or too fast, food will get stuck as it enters the top of your new stomach. And the air that you swallow when you also swallow your mouthful will have nowhere to go. Hence the burping and feeling full, like right up to your neck. The reason this happens is that you used to have a lot more room in your stomach. You used to have a big sack for a stomach, and now you have a little pipe. So when you used to swallow a mouthful, you could eat a big mouthful and you could eat a couple quite quickly, and then there would still be room for that food to move out of the way. It would just pop into that sort of big sack for a stomach. Now there's no room. It's much more difficult for the food, and it gets stuck at the top, and you'll often feel like you've got a bit of a build up going on, and that's just because it's like a little pipe now, and there's nowhere near the room for that food and that air to escape like it used to. If you often feel like you're filling up really quickly after maybe 1 or 2 mouthfuls, and then you're getting hungry soon after a meal, that is a very good sign that your biggest problem, the biggest culprit of your discomfort, is that you're eating too big a mouthfuls or they're too fast. Because once that food has had time to work its way down after those first couple of mouthfuls have sort of built up at the top of the stomach, you'll actually realize that your stomach is nowhere near as full as it could be. It's just that we call it early satiety. You felt full early on in your meal because it had kind of got stuck at the top of the stomach. So, what do we need to do to make you feel more comfortable after you've eaten? This is a really, really sort of key area, I think, because lots of people struggle, but then you don't really know how to sort of make everything feel a bit better. So there's a few things that I want you to think about. You'll see up on the screen there's sort of a cycle that you can go through every time you think about having a meal, just to remind yourself, I guess, about how to feel more comfortable. So the first thing you can do is actually make sure that you make time for your meal. So you serve your meal on small plate or in a small bowl. So something like a bread and butter plate rather than a normal dinner plate, or a ramekin, or like a little yum cha bowl rather than a big pasta bowl. What this will do is make it much easier for you to serve a smaller amount so that your eyes won't be too big for your stomach. And then I want you to sit down and make time for your meal. When you actually, turn off all the screens, get away from the computer or the TV so that you can actually concentrate on what you're doing. This is really important, and it comes down to being a bit more mindful around your food. If you're distracted, then you're just not going to be able to really concentrate on what you're doing and recognize those fullness and hunger signals as you're having your meal. The next thing is actually eat it slowly. So part of eating it slowly is taking small mouthfuls to start with. So we're talking about a 5 or a 10 cent piece or a thumbnail size, less than a dime if you're in the US. That's a really good size. It's sort of maybe half to maximum a teaspoon per mouthful. The bigger the mouthful is, the harder it is going to be to chew up and to swallow, and especially with those harder foods like steak, rice, pasta, bread. With those harder foods, the best way to do that is to have even smaller mouthfuls than you would do with something that's a bit softer and easier to eat. Then I want you to actually chew your food. So you've got your small mouthful, you put it in your mouth, you chew your food, and then you wait. And you wait. You put your knife and fork down in between each mouthful, and then you chew your food, swallow, wait, pick up your knife and fork, and then make your next mouthful. So that whole meal should take you about 20 to 30 minutes to eat. If it's taking you less than 20 minutes, you're probably just going too fast. And if it's taking you more than 30 minutes, then you're probably just eating more than you need. Okay, and both of those outcomes are going to make you feel a bit uncomfortable. You can actually set a timer, and there's a few apps like Eat Slowly is a great app just for helping you to slow down. It tells you when to chew and to take your next mouthful. The next thing I want you to talk about is hunger. So thinking about when to start a meal, when to eat a meal, and when to stop while you are eating a meal. I want you to think about your hunger on a scale of 0 to 10. When 0 out of 10 is so hungry that you could eat your own fingers, and 10 out of 10 is so full that you want to throw up. Ideally, we want to stay between a 3 and a 7 out of 10 at all times during the day. What I find is that if you get below a 3, so you get too hungry, people will get too hungry, and then when they eat next, they'll either choose the wrong foods or they'll eat too fast because they are starving. If you are eating to the point where you're more than a 7 out of 10, you're probably just eating more than you need. So a 7 out of 10 kind of feels like you're satisfied, you're not hungry anymore, but you're not quite full yet. So you could probably take one more small mouthful, but you're not going to, because that might just tip you over the edge. Finally, don't drink with your meals. Okay, there's just not enough room in there. It's a volume issue more than anything else. And we're actually going to talk about drinking with your meals in one of the upcoming videos. So I won't delve into that in too much detail, but just a reminder now. So every time I want you to actually make time for your meal. Sit down and concentrate on what you're doing. Serve your meals in small bowls or on small plates. Use small cutlery like a teaspoon rather than a dessert spoon. Concentrate on what you're doing, so you're taking small mouthfuls about the size of a thumbnail. You're chewing each mouthful before you swallow, resting in between each mouthful before you take your next mouthful. And so that process of eating your meal is taking you 20 to 30 minutes. You're keeping your hunger at all times somewhere between a 3 and a 7 out of 10. So you're never starving, but you're never over full. And finally, you're not eating and drinking at the same time. So you're giving yourself a little bit of a break before you eat and a little bit of a break after you eat before you start drinking again.
So now we've gone over quite a few practical tips and tricks to make you feel more comfortable after you've eaten. What I want you to do is to go away and practice just one of these tips that we've spoken about. Practice it for the next 48 hours. Really just pick whichever one you think is going to be the most applicable to you, whatever resonates with you the most, whatever you think might be causing most of your problems. Most people have sort of an idea about what it might be. You can also print out the top 10 tips for living with a sleeve PDF that was in the email as well, and that will help you just, some people put it on the fridge so when they've finished preparing their meal they just get a little reminder before they sit down, but you might like to carry it around with you in your handbag and pull it out just before you eat as well, just to give you a little reminder before you start. Let me know how you go with that. Okay, really want to hear from you. So please, just once you practice that for 48 hours, please send me an email. Just hit reply to any of the emails that I send you, and just really please let me know whether it makes a difference or not. Or if you're still struggling, then maybe we can talk a little bit more about it. In the next video, we're going to be tackling how to get used to not eating and drinking at the same time. So we'll do a deep dive again, and then I'll give you some practical tips and tricks, and we'll also explain why it's important not to eat and drink at the same time. There's a lot of misinformation out there. But until then, I hope you have a great couple of days. You'll get that email in 48 hours straight into your inbox. And thanks again for joining me. I hope to get to know you over the next little while. Cheers.